Well, good afternoon, everyone. And I hope that everyone is enjoying this outstanding program. Certainly, I know that those of us who feel strong connection to New York Lawyers for the Public Interest appreciate the opportunity to gather, even if it is virtual. Certainly, we have all been living on Zoom. We have all been living from our dining room tables for the most part. But in this difficult time, it is the connections that we choose to make and the conversations that we choose to have that really highlight the values of this and any organization. And so today, I am so delighted to be able to have a conversation with two outstanding individuals, two award recipients of the day, our outstanding honorees. Let me again introduce to you Eric Grossman, Jami McKeon. You've heard about the outstanding work that they've done. Many of you know both Eric and Jami. You know that their commitment to the organization runs deep. And most importantly, you know that their commitment to social justice is part of who they are. It really is part of the fabric of their work up to this really important inflection point in today's society. So let's start with that as we start to have a conversation about race and social justice in probably one of the most challenging periods we've been in since the heyday and the height of the civil rights movement itself. I'm going to jump right in and start with some of the important work that both of you guys are doing in this field. Jami, in particular, we all watched with, frankly, horror as we saw George Floyd lose his life in front of the world. But you took action after that. You and your colleagues formed the portion of the firm called Mobilizing for Equity. Tell us about that and tell us, what are the goals and where is it going so far?
Thanks so much, Loretta. You're right. Mobilizing for Equality is Morgan Lewis's response to the issues that really have plagued us all for quite a long time. But I think this summer they really came to the fore. And we decided that we wanted to institutionalize the things that we think are really important to effectuate real change. So I asked our partner, Grace Spades, to lead Mobilizing for Equality with me. So we formed our Mobilizing for Equality task force. It has 14 members from all levels and all parts of the 31 offices of our firm. And under that, we have 14 working groups. And these working groups range from voting engagement to community volunteerism to economic development and investment to impact litigation. But we also have working groups that are focused internally, transforming the next generation, educating ourselves, conversations about anti-racism and privilege. And maybe most importantly, we have a working group called Measuring Our Progress, which is designed to really keep us very, very focused. And we're trying to involve our clients and our communities in these working groups. We've also seconded some of our folks, including one to NYLPI, I'm delighted to say, working to serve organizations that are led by Black and Brown individuals. So we're really trying to make a difference and making a long-lasting difference and trying to do our part, just as your firm, Loretta, and Eric's company are being so active in this space as well.
Thanks so much, Jami. I'm particularly heartened when you talk about measuring progress, because as we all know, if we don't measure something, we're not able to track it. If we can't track it, we really can't determine how close we are to making real change. Eric, you're in the financial services industry. Obviously, the attention on the issues of social justice is focusing on all aspects of our country, including economic institutions, in particular is how they're looking at these issues of systemic racism and sort of long-term challenges. And you have been very vocal on this issue. And I believe you actually joined a letter with several other general counsels of other financial services firms. Tell us about that effort. What were you highlighting in that letter?
Well, first of all, Loretta, thanks, and Jami, great to be here with you. The letter, the joint letter by the general counsels of the major financial institutions on the planet was really interesting as it came together, because if you note the date of the letter, it was really many months after the murder of George Floyd, and we had a debate amongst us about whether the passage of time made the letter less important or less relevant. And we came down to a person with the view that the passage of time made the letter more relevant and more important. I think my greatest concern after the murder of George Floyd was that there would be, energy around this issue, and then it would fade and pass, as we've seen energy around so many other issues before. And I think, and I shared this with my fellow general counsels, a real concern that the passage of time actually required us to continue to do more and say more and be public about what we wanted to do collectively. But we thought we would focus on three key elements. One was our internal efforts. One is external efforts. So how can we help with external change? And then, of course, what can we do in terms of direct contribution for social action efforts? Last year was indeed an inflection point. And we created this Diversity and Inclusion Institute, which is going to be critically important to drive our programs internally, but also the how you measure it, Loretta, which you touched on, which I think is without question. We've all in the senior leadership of the firm come around to the view that if we don't have tangible goals, that they're going to be hard to hold people accountable, and people do need to be held accountable. We put up on the wall as our fifth value commitment to diversity and inclusion. And this is something and at Morgan Stanley, we talk about culture a lot, right? How does a financial institution distinguish itself from others, which is, for us, it's always been our culture at Morgan Stanley of doing the right thing, leading with exceptional ideas, putting clients first, and giving back to our communities. And we had over the years debated, where does diversity and inclusion fit? Well, of course, it comes from doing the right thing and leading with exceptional ideas, and giving back to your communities, and therefore we didn't think we needed to call it out as a separate value. That was an analysis we had done. We decided last year, you know what? No more. It's going up on the wall in every Morgan Stanley building. Every conversation that we have with a new employee where we talk about our values will be a commitment to diversity and inclusion. Every conversation when we get our senior leadership team together, we will talk about a commitment to diversity and inclusion. And then we will marry it with these other the work of the council, and we will deliver tangible progress. So we've really doubled down on our pro bono commitments internally and externally as a way of helping to actually help individuals, because there's the collective work, and then of course there's the individual work, and neither is more important than the other.
Yeah. So well said. So well said. But let me circle back to the issue of the law firms, as you mentioned. Jami, as you mentioned, you and I have both been in practice for some time now. And I think it's fair to say that all three of us have seen similar initiatives like this before. The push for diversity, particularly from the client base, the even with stated goals, even with specific clients, talking to our colleagues and all of us about pulling people into work and making sure that there is this pathway and this pipeline. And I think, frankly, we all have to be very candid and honest and admit that the legal profession, for whatever reason, makes great efforts, but has not been able to bring this home. And when we look at the results, when we look at who stays in the law in general, who stays in the larger organizations in particular, and who rises to the leadership there. And so we've had a lot of great efforts and discussion and intention before. What is it that makes this moment different in your view, Jami? I mean, what are we doing differently? What are we seeing differently? And if we're not seeing it, what do we need to see?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's not like this is a new topic, right? We have all been focused on this, but I want to pick up on something Eric said, because I really do feel that the past year gave us an inflection point, and we've all realized that we just have to be a lot more intentional. And I think we're seeing a lot of things that give us hope that we are making better steps toward change. First, the point you discussed with Eric, our clients are no longer just asking questions, making suggestions, expressing a preference. Clients are insisting on seeing real progress in terms of diversity and inclusion. And there could be nothing more important, I think, than your entire client base who is really expecting that of you, because it's not only an imperative, but it's also a license on the part of all of the law firms to really move forward with some of the programs that before have been more internally facing than externally facing. The bottom line is we all have to do better. You know, at our firm, we've got a lot of women and people of color in leadership positions, but we have a long road to go. But I think that we are getting better as a profession about really refining the way to make this not stall the way it has in the past.
Sure, which is key. It's so key. And I think actually, Jami, you really hit the nail on the head when you said that in years past, everyone who was working on this issue with intentionality, with the best of intentions, actually, sort of had the view that if we focus so much on hiring and bringing people in, then they'll be fine. As someone who's actually been an actual minority associate in a large firm in my career, I can tell you that sometimes what often happens is, out of a desire to treat everyone equally, minority associates often aren't treated any particular way at all. And they miss out on the connections that other associates make because people are trying to be so neutral towards them. And so viewing this with intentionality, I think, is key. But that does raise an important issue. And I actually would love to get both of your thoughts on this as to whether or not you have seen any backlash to your efforts, whether or not you anticipate any backlash to your efforts, and what your thoughts would be on that. I raise this because, look, obviously we're all part of the larger society. We have all seen over the past 4.5 years, a significant backlash to the very idea of seeing people of color in the highest position in the land and in other positions. And as we've seen, unfortunately, it's opened up a number of people to express some thoughts that I think a lot of us had hoped we had moved past or moved beyond. And so as we move with intentionality towards opening up our profession, how do you intend to deal with those issues? Eric, what are your thoughts on that?
We have come to recognize that communication, mentoring, sponsoring, and I think Jami used the word, I don't know if she said deliberateness or intentionality. I think she said intentionality. You can marry those two things and identify high potential talent, diverse, most importantly, and make sure they get what they need to thrive in a meritocracy. We just cannot afford to lose folks who have an opportunity to succeed. I do think, though, like lots of things, this inflection point that we had last year, has, even in your most recalcitrant, meritocracy types, they've come to appreciate that if we want to better reflect the communities we serve, we have to do better.
I wanted to see, Jami, if you wanted to add anything on the issue of pushback or on the issue of some people who might take a different perspective.
I really do think that when you take smart people and everyone reasons together, I rarely have found somebody who doesn't agree with the basic principle that a more diverse and more inclusive environment is a better one. Just from a lot of different perspectives, it's more interesting. It brings more different points of view and experiences to the table. And we're in a job where what we're trying to do is help our clients solve difficult problems. And having a more diverse team focused on those difficult problems generally tends to get to a better solution. And it's not because one group is smarter than another, or one group is more intuitive than another, or one group is better than another. It's that when we widen the net so that we're bringing people with different ways of thinking and different life experiences and different approaches together, we just get a better, more thoughtful result.
Most of us, all of us really became lawyers because we wanted to do good things in the world. We wanted to help people. And I've actually talked with a number of corporate lawyers at all levels of their career who say that it's very frustrating not to have the same outlet that they perceive is limited to litigators. And so that's been a challenge, I think, for some time. And I want to use that really as a bridge to talk about our final issue, which is probably the biggest issue facing the country today. certainly one of the oldest issues, and that's the issue of systemic racism throughout our systems, and both legal and economic and the like. And the ways in which we're all trying to find ways to both illuminate that issue, the larger issue of systemic racism, and bring the resources of our great profession to bear on that. Eric, can you share with us some of the corporate pro bono that you've seen that you think is particularly focused on the economic challenges and the business challenges that seem to be ongoing and endemic, if not systemic?
We've come to recognize, for lots of the reasons I noted before, that businesses owned by people of color, for all the institutional or systemic impediments that they have to either availing themselves of opportunities for support or advocating for themselves, whether it be in eviction proceedings or in employment proceedings, like that, they need the help they need pro bono help and assistance.
Jami, this is an issue that obviously the law firms have struggled with also, as we think about the issues facing the country and the role that lawyers and the law tends to play. We're placed at the highest levels of government. We're placed at the highest levels of business. We do have insight into the mechanisms of the economy and our country. But it has been a challenge to even identify these larger issues of systemic racism and sort of share what that means to people without bringing on the backlash we spoke about earlier, and then finding real ways to challenge it and to try and work within it. Have you been having conversations with clients and the like about what they would like to do along the lines of opening up economic equality, for example?
I want to jump on the conversation you just had with Eric, because I believe so passionately that pro bono is a way that we can accomplish a lot of the things that you're talking about. At our firm, we require every lawyer to do pro bono. You hear people say, well, there aren't good opportunities for corporate lawyers, or there aren't good opportunities for people in other countries. Just not true. The sad fact is there's so much need out there. And great organizations like NYLPI make it easier for organizations like ours to find ways that we can give back and that we can help, whether it's child advocacy, whether it's immigration, or whether it's issues of systemic racism. For example, to the point that you just raised, one of the things we're doing is, we've had 500 of our lawyers focused on COVID-19 advice for our clients, just generating work product and thought leadership that clients can use on a wide variety of things, including PPP programs. Well, a lot of our Black and Brown owned businesses haven't had the traditional banking relationships to know where to go for those programs. So we've actually pro bono been training those in conjunction with chambers of commerce and business organizations in different communities as a way to sort of dovetail these two things, right? The pro bono aspect, but also the attacking the systemic racism. And I heard somebody say the other day something, but when we look at our own organizations, if you're not being intentionally inclusive, you're almost certainly being unintentionally exclusive. And so to your question about what we can all do as lawyers, as a society, as a profession, part of it really has to do with examining ourselves, recognizing our own biases, because it helps check you and recognize, wait a minute, let me take a step back. Am I not applying the same standards? Am I making it harder for someone to succeed? So I think there's such an interrelationship between all of the things that we can do as lawyers and how we can help really effectuate a meaningful and lasting change in our society. Obviously, with the great support of clients like Morgan Stanley and organizations like NYLPI, if we all work together, I really do believe that inflection point can effect lasting change.
So well said. So well said. Let me thank both of you, not just for today's conversation, but all the work that you both have done throughout your careers that have led you to this point. And by this point, I don't mean just this outstanding award and this luncheon, but to being true leaders, leaders in action, as well as leaders in thought on some of the most important issues of the day. As we have talked about a little bit, if you can see it, you can be it. And I want to thank you for also being an example for so many others who are looking for ways to truly provide real help on these challenging issues of diversity and inclusion. They could do they could look no further than to the two of you and both of your efforts and actions for some of the best examples that we have. So thank you both for your time. Thank you both for your work in this area. And I can't wait to see what you all are going to do next. So thanks to everyone who's joined us for this exciting conversation.